That's cinema, baby. Hello, welcome to the Lazypug review show. I am Lazypug. I watched Babylon recently, and not sure what I think of it. I might dislike it. Frankly, I might hate it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there's things I dig about that film. But the worst aspect of the movie is that it feels like a party movie made by a guy who's never gone to a party in his life. I mean, look at DC. The guy looks like his ideal night out would be reading Moby Dick in the park. But at its best, Babylon shows how fun and experimental the film medium can be. So, soft recommendation? I mean, the movie bombed so hard it's making Amsterdam look like a modest hit, so yeah, watch it. My last video didn't bomb, and it's because of awesome viewers like you all. So please remember to like and subscribe, and we can go on with the video. Speaking of Babylon, a friend of mine said he wants to watch Babylon because he feels like First Man was a one for the studio, and Babylon was the one for Damien Chazelle. And I don't totally agree with them. I think both films were for Damien Chazelle. But it did get me thinking about that idea. So today we're going to be talking about the ideas of directors doing a one for them, one for me deal. Not quite sure what the first time a director thought about supplementing their art by making box office successes, but I think it might have been part of the whole film medium since the beginning. Like those filmmakers that made the slow-moving train towards the audience. I bet after they showed that movie, they were thinking, dang, can my next movie be about a sad dude full of regret? Or do I gotta make slow-moving train too? So what is a one for them movie? Hollywood is kind of a cutthroat business, so if you aren't constantly making hits, chances are you're gonna be pushed to the wayside and never work in the biz again. So there's a lot of pressure by filmmakers to have hits. I remember first hearing about a one for them, one for me movie when Spielberg made War of the Worlds. He wanted to make something more personal in Munich, but still wanted the cast save being Steven Spielberg. So he was like, what do people like? Oh, I know, they like aliens. And he made War of the Worlds. And the bet paid off. War of the Worlds made over $500 million at the box office and made Justin Chatwin a star. Wait, sorry, I got that wrong. He didn't become a star. Sorry, Chatwin. Sorry, my bad. But in true Stevie fashion, Munich was also a hit. That's what I call the Spielberg bang bang. The guy is so good at making bank at the box office that even his risky bets tend to make a profit. Well, that was until recently. I do love West Side Story and The Fabelmans though. So, sorry Stevie, you made a couple of bombs. But forget about that. Nobody made more money from their personal projects than Steven Spielberg. I always think about this funny story I heard about how Martin Scorsese wanted to make Schindler's List, but was afraid of it not doing so well at the box office, so he agreed to trade projects with Steven Spielberg. Stevie had been working on a remake of Cape Fear, and it was a real dream of his to make Schindler's List. And he was already in the process of making Jurassic Park, so he called Marty up and he was like, hey Marty, I can take a flop. I don't know if you can. Just give me Schindler's List, and I'll give you Cape Fear. And Marty was like, he makes a good point. Boom. And the trade paid off. Marty did make the most successful film of his career at that time. Cape Fear made over $100 million at the box office. However, Spielberg's Schindler's List made over $300 million and won every Academy Award listed. It even won Best Short Film somehow. Now, I'm not saying Scorsese's kicking rocks or anything, but I wonder if he looks back at that trade, wondering if it's the equivalent of trading James Harden for Steven Adams and some picks. But Scorsese did get to make Age of Innocence, which I guess was ultimately his goal. But 300 million. Can you imagine that? Scorsese making 300 million? Whew. Now I gotta talk about my GOAT, Francis Ford Coppola. If you know anything about the guy, it's that he made The Godfather. Like, he literally made that movie. He wasn't trying to make a Godfather type of film. He made the damn thing. Anyways, Francis is a little nutty. His whole life is about getting total artistic control. I can probably make a whole video about the collapse of American zoetrope, but I just want to focus on a few films by Coppola. He made The Godfather, and he followed that up by making Godfather 2. Both were huge hits, but believe it or not, those were the ones for the studio. He wanted to get money so he can fund projects like Apocalypse Now, which was a hit despite its poor production history. And then Francis had to do his best James Holzhauer impression and go all in on a film called One from the Heart, which did flop and bankrupt him. He then spent the rest of his career making films based on novels or star vehicles like Jack. What I admire about Coppola's later period is that despite not being as grand or something like Apocalypse Now, he still carried his spirit in all those films. How can you watch something like The Outsiders and not see the art? Anyways, he ended up building a wine empire that became bigger than any of his films and retired peacefully into the sunset. Wait, what? Wait, he sold his wine empire to produce one more passion project.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
What people get wrong about this idea is that I don't think filmmakers are intentionally making flops or inaccessible movies. I was watching a video earlier about the three amigos, Guillermo del Toro, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, and Alfonso Cuarón. And in that video, he shared a quote from Cuarón. And Cuarón said, and by the way, this isn't a direct quote, because Direct quotes are for chumps. Cuarón said he thinks filmmaking at a big scale is like being a kid eating cereal to get to the toy at the bottom of a bag. The toy being more personal films like Roma and Uta Mami Tambien, and the cereal being films like Gravity and Harry Potter 3. Cuarón goes on to say he obviously enjoys the cereal as much as the toys. I personally think that's a great outlook for filmmaking. Like obviously everybody wants to make Apocalypse Now, but sometimes you gotta make The Godfather. And if you keep making films like One from the Heart, you eventually gotta make films like Jack.
I like Jack.
Yes, yes, Knives. Nobody So did Damien Chazelle know he was making a flop and that his hits like Whiplash and La La Land would carry him to his next film? I don't think so. I bet Chazelle was hoping Babylon would be a huge hit on the same level of movies like Boogie Nights and The Wolf of Wall Street. But the real secret in the one for them, one for me deals is if the one for the filmmakers aren't hitting, chances are you can't make any more films like that. Well, unless you sell your whole wine empire like Francis Ford Coppola, my goat.